a lot of times we help towns with this, and we do the bid administration for them. And we usually charge about $3,500 to $5,000 to do that for this type of project. And that would basically, we would email it out to the bidders. We'd do all the contact with the bidders. We'd answer all the questions, go through that process, receive bids. And then once the low bidder is identified, or the one that the town is likely to use, then we would coordinate with them, trying to come up with some value engineering ideas where they can have some suggestions on where the town can save money to kind of further pull the contract down. And then we'd help with, once all that's settled and the budgets line up, we'd help with securing that final contract. And that's what's included in that $3,500 to $5,000. The cost estimate for survey and preparation of grading. So it's hard to know exactly what we're going to get into for these easements, but we've done enough of them. We just did a bunch over on Academy Hill Road. I think we're able to do like 4 or 5 of them for under $3,000. So I think for budgeting purposes, usually we're anywhere from $800 to $1,500 to do the easements. And what that will be is we'll prepare a plan that we'll give to the town. It'll just be a rough plan, and the town will then present it to the landowner. And if the landowner is happy and satisfied with the preliminary plan, then you send it back to us saying it looks good or with the changes noted, and then we give it to our surveyors. And the surveyors will put meets and bounds on it, put all their legal descriptions on that. And then we can give it back to you guys to use to finalize the documents with your attorney. And then we'll prepare a legal description of the meets and bounds of all that once you're ready to go. And we'll work with your attorney to kind of put all the information together in the legal transfer, if you will, for that easement. So they can be both temporary and they can be permanent, depending on the level we need. David Starr, our surveyor down there, who's pretty familiar with that area, he believes the road is up against the right-of-way boundary in a couple of locations. It doesn't look it on the maps I was looking at, but he was looking at a lot of the old survey data, and he thinks it gets pretty tight in a few locations. So there's a good possibility we're going to be outside the right-of-way, even to just get a little sidewalk in there. So it's something to kind of to be aware of as we go forward with this. We have not included costs to design the retaining walls. However, how we traditionally handle that is we'll call it the parameters of the wall, we'll call it the length, the height, and as long as we know what type of wall the town would like to use, we'll include that in the design. We'll put it in our plans, we'll put it on our specs, and then we let the wall designer, usually a precast, manufactured precast block wall. We'll use their company. We'll actually design a wall once the bid packet goes out. So they'll be able to look at our plans, come up with an estimate to give that to the contractor, and then they'll add in the cost to have the wall designed, depending on how long and how substantial it is. That price will change, but they'll usually add that to the cost of the actual wall. And then once you go through the process, once the contractor is ready, the contractor will then go back to that manufacturer and say, okay, we're ready to go. And then they'll pay to have that wall designed finally. The benefit of doing it that way, rather than us designing the wall, is that it gives the contractor flexibility with the pre-manufactured block companies, whoever they're going to use. They don't have to use a specific one unless, of course, the town decides they want a certain block. It just keeps the flexibility open, and we don't have to go through the process, and they don't have to go through the process until you're actually ready to move forward with the project. The alternative to that is we could design that wall, especially if the town's looking to do like a cast in place or some other pre-manufactured block wall. We could definitely do that and go through the process and put all that information on the plans. And if you think you want to go through that path, then we can look at how much wall we're going to need and come up with an estimate to go through those designs. But generally speaking, we call for a lot of retaining wall and block wall, and I always try to default to the manufacturers and let them come up with a design rather than kind of go through the process twice, because they're going to check everything we do anyway. So we do it the reverse, let them design it, and then we'll check it if needed.
Andrew, a couple of questions. So there are some locations, I can think of at least one large tree that may have to go. There's some rock walls and maybe a couple other features. So when you prepare your plans and meet with a property owner, will you show them a grading plan, what it will look like once those items are removed or relocated?
Absolutely. We'll have it on a plan set. We won't do any visual plans for that, like a 3D rendering or anything like that. But we'll definitely have a plan that'll show where all our grading is, the trees to be removed, the rock wall that needs to be adjusted. I don't know if you've seen any of our plans that we do, but we are very detailed. I'm not a big fan of the DOT plans. I have a hard time following them myself. There's just like a bunch of black lines and 2 arrows, and you're supposed to know what's going on. But we add quite a bit of information to our plan so that, if you will, the lay person is able to kind of follow it. And I do that often with landowners, is I can meet with them right on site. And I would recommend we do this for these easement areas. Is you meet with them right on site, we can look at their rock wall, their trees, their flower gardens, whatever they have. We've had to move ferns and bushes and mailboxes and whatnot. And you meet with them and you can say, here's where it is, and this is where it's gonna be. And you can literally stand there on their lot and show them that we're only gonna move it a few feet, and it just gets their comfort level to what is needed. And then they understand, because we just give them a plan and throw it at them. It's tough to read some of these, especially if it's not detailed enough, but we're detailed plans, and we're glad to meet with them and kind of go through that, walk through them slowly with everybody.
Would they be similar plans to what you did for us for Hodgson and for Vine Street?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Same thing with Vine. We met with everybody out there when we were doing those easements. We explained what was going on. And as soon as we were able to do that, everybody seemed to relax and understand that what we're proposing. And then Dusty put together the survey plans to finalize everything. And then it was smooth sailing from there. So it would be very similar to exactly what we just did for that. But it is critical to convey the information and to be able to stand there on site as long as everybody's comfortable with that, and kind of point out what's going on and where everything's going to be moving around to. So the next question on the list was the cost estimate for construction management and traffic control. So we didn't include any of the construction management in our contract, but for general purposes, when you get into construction management, it can change drastically. It depends on the level of testing you want, whether you want to have gravel tested, whether you want to have asphalt tested, and so on and so on, and how often is somebody needed to be on site. Some firms will say, yeah, we're going to set a resident on site and we're going to watch everything that happens and measure quantities and what like that. Generally speaking, we don't go to that level. We usually don't find it necessary. What we do is we do some spot inspections, and then we do some general material testing depending on the level the town wants to see. So for a project like this, we recommend we team with a geotechnical firm, either SW Cole or Summit Engineering, because they provide the actual testing of material. And we team with them, and we recommend doing 2 or 3 different gradations to sample the actual aggregate going in place. And then we do some compaction tests along the sidewalk to make sure they're compacting it properly. Do a dozen or so of those. I don't think we need to test, every 50 feet or something like that. It's a sidewalk, for one. It's going to have low traffic on it. It's just going to be snow removal equipment, more or less. And not that compaction is not important, but it's a little more flexible with the non-traffic location. So we would recommend a few of those tests to get the geotech involved, and then we'd probably stop in 6 to 8 times during construction to oversee things, to review things, to make sure they match up. And again, we can do this more or less, but I just wanted to give you a ballpark what we recommend. So with those inspections, the soils, the testing that I just kind of mentioned, it'd probably be $6,500 to $8,500 to do the construction oversight for a project of this size. With regards to traffic control, what we generally do is, rather than dictate methods and means for the contractor, which I always find costs more money if we tell them how they need to do something, what I prefer to do is have them give us a plan, what they want to do with the traffic control. So then they would present that to the town. The town could review it, and we'll definitely help out and review that with them. Make sure it lines up with how the town wants to see traffic go through that, whether you allow them to shut it down a certain periods for certain sections, or you need to maintain one-way access. We'll put enough notes on the plan before it goes out to the contractor so they have some guidance, but the actual traffic control plan they'll provide to the town and to us to review to make sure we're all in agreement, so that there are no surprises, and they can come up with how they actually want to proceed with that. The anticipated conflicts with water and sewer utilities, especially the cross culverts. So we haven't looked at a lot of the cross culverts. Everything seems to be pretty linear. We'll definitely look at those as we go through the design. And if we do have to get across the street, I think I've already hit on that. We can address those after a preliminary phase here. But there is a lot of sewer in the way there. There's a lot of water in the way. I think we can work around that by pulling the drain line out behind things. What we'll do to minimize conflicts is we're gonna reach out to the Great Salt Bay Sanitary District. We'll have them mark out. Sometimes they struggle to know where things are out there, quite honestly, in the ground. So we'll have them mark out to the best of their ability, but it's not uncommon for things to escape them. So they'll mark all the water lines, they'll kind of flag some of the valves, and then we'll go through and shoot all their markings that they put. You know, our surveyors will do that while they're right there on site. We'll open the manholes up and we'll shoot the inverts, at least look at the inverts along the sanitary system so that we know about where the conflict may be. So we definitely go through all that with them. But as we all know, anytime we're dealing with anything underground, it's an unknown. Water lines are really flexible as far as elevation they place. And I've seen a bunch of mysterious water lines arrive that we had no clue were in the ground, especially down in that area. So there's a bunch of things that just kind of float around that we still may run into. But we'll do our best to minimize those potential conflicts by knowing what we know, being able to pick up everything we can and being able to get it on our plans and kind of accurately track that. The last question I have on the list here was the potential for wetland impacts. There's that one pond at the kind of up past Biscay Road there that looked pretty wet. But other than that, we don't anticipate there's going to be wetland impacts. Again, until we can do survey and start looking at this for a design purpose, we have not anticipated having enough wetland impacts to require us to do permitting. So that would be 4,300 square feet we can do prior to getting into wetland permitting. So I think we'll be short of that. And the only impacts that we may run into is what I already talked about was doing a new outfall location and impacting anything within 75 feet of that stream. And then if we do have wetland impacts or have to do anything else, we can kind of wrap that all together in one NRPA, and that's that $3,500 to $4,000 approach to that.
Andrew, the concern I had with that was if we have to have a new outfall on the north side of the road, east of the brook, a couple of things that goes right into that tidal portion of the stream. Do you anticipate a tough permitting process for that?
No, it's actually easier. So anything in the tidal situation is actually easier because they're not worried about the peak control or the water going in there. They want you to flush that out. So we'd be able to discharge that in there easier than we would be able to into like a freshwater water body.
Okay.
So we'll go through that process. The only thing that could potentially pop up is the fish habitat. I should have looked before our meeting, but I'm not sure if it's a critical habitat. And if it happens to be a critical habitat, we have to get Army Corps involved as well and kind of add them to the review process to make sure we're doing what's right and we're not going to impact the habitat. But for a simple outfall, as long as we can keep it back from the stream and don't have to discharge directly into the side of the stream, ideally we pull that 25 feet back and then stabilize everything right up to the stream. But if we have to get within that 25 feet, then it gets a little more complicated and Army Corps is a little more concerned. But I'm not really concerned about that. Even if there are sturgeon and salmon swimming up and down that stream there, we should be able to get through the process because it's a necessity. There's not something that we can avoid. We can't put water uphill, so it has to go in those locations. And I'm pretty confident we'll be able to convince them why it needs to go there.
Okay, thanks.
Andrew, looking at your Academy Hill project, that's kind of be similar, a little bit similar to what we're going to do. Was there anything that you would have changed different now you've got it installed?
That's a good question. I think it came out really well. I like what we did. There was a couple of spots I've always drainage is always super important. And I wish there was a little bit more, there was like one or two spots that we had to retrofit afterwards There was a side slope there that water, after we did the whole project, water just started bubbling out of the side of the mountain there. And we're like,
Oh, jeez.
put all this drainage in place, and water now is peaking out where it never had before. So we had to go back in, we put an under drain and tied it across. And then there was another spot coming off the softball field there
Yeah,
where water never existed there before, because we went through that, and now it's eroded, and they changed something about how they mow, I don't know. But there's a little soft spot there that I wish we had a catch basin sitting right next to that hydrant, and we're able to pick the water up rather than do that. So we're hoping that one dries out. We don't do any more digging. And if so, we're gonna run it. If it doesn't dry out, we're gonna run some under drain behind that to pick that up. So I think, other than being more cautious with some of the steep side slopes, which you have in this project as well, and making sure we can pick those all up and discharge them or get them in a closed system or to a ditch. I think other than that, it came out really well. I wish we could have put a crosswalk up at the top of the hill for the kids crossing, but it just wasn't funds to put another crossing there and slow cars down. But I think it came out pretty good. We saved a bunch of trees that they weren't hopeful for. So I like to save the trees when we can, just because I think some of these big, large trees that are in town, you know, they do a nice job of screening. People become very attached to them, even if they are in the right of way. So I think we did do a good job saving those, and unfortunately we couldn't save them all, so we did have to clip a couple of the big trees. But other than that, unless there's something I should be aware of.
well, I have a follow-up on that.
Yes, please.
I noticed all your entrances to all the houses where the hot top meets the road,
Yep.
there are lips all the way down through the whole project. Is that going to be a norm for the project in Damariscotta?
I had never seen that before. Let me phrase it that way. That was not a design specification. It was something that the town decided they wanted to do, working with the road commissioner / paver, to create a lip along that edge. So they put a board in there that was, you know, an inch thick, and then paved along the edge of it to create that lip. I was trying to get them to eliminate it, but the town decided they liked them and wanted them in there. But generally speaking, I do not include a lip for any driveway on any project I've done.
Okay, that's a good explanation.
The answer to that, though, is it did work. You know, I went out there in the rain to watch things, and it keeps that little dribble off from going into that driveway. So when you get that little stream of water, generally what I like to do is I like to lower the road asphalt just a little bit there, and then pave it in, so you create the seam at the edge there rather than kind of doing it almost after the fact. But
Right.
that was brought up during discussion, during inspections, and we ended up electing to leave it the way it was.
Well, just for the plowing aspect of
Oh my
it,
goodness, yeah.
those lips trip your trip edge every time you go over them. So
It's
we
a
can
temporary fix. Yeah.
that would be great.
Yep. They won't be there. Well, it depends on who paves it, I guess.
Yeah,
No,
we're
but
not
no,
gonna-
we
we're not
can
gonna do
direct that. We can direct that.
So I didn't have any other questions, Andrew. I kind of looked over your numbers compared to everybody else. The only thing was the hours that were involved. It was I think you guys had like 294, and the next one up had like 434. So
Yeah. So, you know what? I look at those hours, and if you work those hours backwards, it'll give us almost a month of time. I can put somebody on this project for an entire month, excluding our survey, excluding our project initiation to do the proposal and all those things, and excluding the construction oversight. That gives me a month of time I can put somebody on this, and we're going to be able to do this quickly and efficiently, I believe. So we went through that, and I looked at those numbers, and I said, oh my goodness, what did I miss? You know, I saw those, but ultimately, I'm confident that we can get this done. I know the hours are half the time, but I think the only reason you saw that many hours is because they wanted to get that number up a little bit higher, to see exactly what they could get out of the project. But you know, you break these numbers down, and I always think engineering should be somewhere between 5 and 7% of total project cost. And if you look at our numbers versus that, and if you're looking at a $500,000 project here potentially, if you run $125 a linear foot for this project, you do that percentages out, they're way up over 10%, 12% for that. And I do think the fact we have surveyors in-house right down the street, literally, that can go over there. I bet their survey numbers, I didn't see theirs, but I bet their survey numbers were twice what we were presenting. Because they got to fit in somebody else's schedule. The surveyors, they don't work in-house, so they're going to go and get that money that they can from somebody else coming to them. So I think that's probably half of the savings right there that I'm talking about. And but no, I'm confident we can do this. I think if there's other things that we want to adjust or address or include in our contract, we're more than willing to, especially the things I've kind of outlined here with the construction oversight, and if we need to get into permitting and all that. And again, we always work on hourly rates. We generally do not charge contract prices. So we'll have the estimate. It won't exceed that price that we presented. But if we are able to get something done quicker and more efficiently, we don't charge you for that extra time. We kind of pride ourselves on that, working with towns so that we don't finish our work up and spend, say, $20,000 and send you a bill for $30,000. So if we save money and able to get done quicker, then you guys save money as well. So it's just how we've always been.
Well, I don't have any questions. I'm very impressed at your answers and questions and so forth, Andrew.
I'm all set. Looking forward to getting going on this.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything additional. And you're just only that your schedule would allow for this to start in the next couple months. If you got the contract, you'd be able to start on the project, on the engineering.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's busy right now. We're definitely busy, but we have that 120 days in the contract that you requested, and we'll be able to comply with that. So we'll jump on this, and we'll get things rolling, and we'll be able to deliver as we've indicated in the contract there.
Okay. Well, good. Well, maybe what we'll do is excuse you from the Zoom meeting here, and the four of us can talk.
Excellent. Yeah, let us know if you want us to tweak that or revise that to put any of these other things in there. And other than that, we can plan on going forward.
All right. Thanks very much, Andrew.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Nice chatting with you all.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
So I've recorded this. I should have mentioned, I pressed record just so if Lou wanted to
Oh,
hear
sure.
the interview. Is that
Good
okay?
idea. Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, okay. Boy, I think it sounds good to me, and then I think we could leave the door for some of these additional items as we go, right? We have the board
Yeah.
approve the $28,000 contract and then add to it as needed, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it, because some of the stuff, until you really know what the scope of the work is, it's a guess. You're putting some money aside and later on figuring out if it's enough or whatever.
I went in through and looked at his numbers for the extra. So $4,000 for an additional outfall, $5,000 for admin and value engineering. I assume 10 easements at $1,000 each, that's $10,000. $8,000 for geotechnical. If you add all that up, including his base bid, it comes out to be about $55,000. So that's still a good number. So maybe, Matt, I don't know how this is done, but if you tell the Board of Selectmen that, you recommend that, and tell them that some additional work could be up to $60,000. So that at least they're aware of that, rather than them understanding that the whole project is going to be $28,000. I think we'll be in good shape.
Now, those other items, though, those weren't included, the ones you just listed and the ones he gave separate numbers for, those weren't included in the other bids because we didn't ask for them.
Some of those were, and I don't recall what they were.
Okay.
The permitting was in Goral's proposal. I know that.
Yes.
But a lot of that stuff is extra. I mean, his bid is still, it's excellent, and I understand how they ended up with it. But I guess I'm saying that even with this the additional numbers he talked about, the only one I can think of, and it's probably not, I mean, I looked at that, I was looking at the south side ditch, and that thing is not going to last forever. This is on the east side of Church Street on the south side. That's entirely outside of the project, and that's another $8,000 just for survey. And so if you other than that, all these other things are good. I mean, we would probably be faced with some of this
Well-
as extras on any of the other bids.
I think I hear what you're saying, Bob. What I would think is maybe we should ask the board to approve the 28,000 quoted figure plus some of these other things that we think we will definitely need.
Those are rough estimates. I mean,
Right.
Or it'll be a not to exceed.
not to exceed $55,000, I would say.
Hmm?
If you want to do not to exceed 55 or 60,000, with the understanding that there are a lot of things that are unknowns at this point.
I guess the only thing I would do is I would accept their proposal and then maybe set up a contingency and then an amount of a contingency for this project if things arise. But based on what the RFP was, I think they met what they needed to do with the
Yeah.
20-something thousand. And then we can explain to the board that there may be additional things that come up with this project on some of the rights of way. If the road may not be right in the middle of the right of way, that we may have to tweak things. So we do have a workable budget of what, 75,000, Matt?
Yeah,
So, I mean, we could award it with this and we'll tell the board that there could be other possibilities, but we do have a budget of 75. And if we need to come back and approve a couple different things, then it should be well below the 75,000.
so you don't think we ought to have them approve the proposal as it was bid plus a fairly substantial contingency? Or are you saying have the board approve the proposal and then as we need it, we'll go back to the board?
Yeah, I think if we can be open with it at the beginning
Mhm.
and say that, we're going to award this and right now we're going to put, 15 to 20% in a contingency, but we're not going to tell them Gatling-Dorsky at the time that they get an additional amount of money, but we can kind of put it into that motion to give us some flexibility. So say, a week before we have a meeting, they've run into a problem and they can spend another $8,000 or something. And then we can approve a little bit more for more contingency if needed.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. So you approve the 28,000 and you go back to, this is the question I have. If you have a new selectman or two and they see coming back in 3 months that, oh, it's a $28,000 bid, but now we got another 20,000 in extras, will that be a problem? Just from either a public perception or from a new selectman concerned about, oh, what are these overruns?
Well, there is no overrun. If you tell them at the beginning that they think they can do it, they're confident they can do it for the 28, and there are identified areas that we've identified that could potentially come to a forefront. And if you put those numbers, they're going to be part of our minutes. So we can identify those areas out loud at our meeting and it will be in our minutes.
Okay,
And then when it comes time to take some money or, we can set up a 10% or a 20% contingency. And if we go above higher than that, then we still have $75,000 to work for that's earmarked for this project.
so when you bring it to the board, you would say, you got this base bid and there are uncertainties such as whether another outfall is required, how many easements are going to be required, and things like that. So you're not talking
permitting,
about
yeah.
numbers, but you're talking about topics.
Correct. And
Right,
just-
don't put any numbers to them, but topics,
Right.
yeah.
Topics.
And
Okay.
just, to just say these topics have come up at our Public Works meeting and we addressed this with the bidder and these are the areas and they're confident they can do it, but we want to be able to put a little bit of money aside for contingency, but we're going to hold them to the 28,000 the best we can.
Do you think I should include the Q&A that,
I was just gonna bring that up. I think it would be good. I think it would help answer some of the people on the board that may be knowledgeable. I don't know how you feel, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, if we can, Matt and I can bring it up at the meeting of these were the questions that we had and Bob had, and we were comfortable with Andrew's explanation and we can add these in and just explain to them. And if anybody has any questions, we have all that information right there at our meeting.
Or Matt could attach this to the package that goes out for
Yeah.
this meeting.
So I think we can do it for what we need to do it for. So,
yeah, I mean, and any money we have left over, that rolls right into construction. So gives us a jump start on that.
Do we have any construction set aside on this, Matt, or is
No.
that just a whole nother topic?
That's another topic, but I've talked to Rob a couple times, Rob
Yeah.
Gregory, and he's willing to come up with some additional dollars. So it's hard to say how much.
Mhm.
And then we'll just go for it. We could go for some grant money. We could go for a DOT grant for this too.
Yeah.
I don't know, Matt, your performance on getting grants was a little suspect.
I know.
I
I
think you've used up your CBDG grant capacity.
I think you're gonna have
They might catch on to him that I'm a little greedy. I don't know.
yeah, we're gonna have to get Max to help out a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, So, okay, well, it sounds like we're good to go. I'm going to add this
I think
as an
so.
agenda item. And we did decide to include the Q&A, right? That sheet.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent, that'll give everybody, I
Okay.
think, just a feeling of confidence. if nothing else.
Yeah, and I don't know whether I hate to send the board all of the proposals. I sent them a summary.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't, they're not gonna read them anyways.
Yeah, I'll send them this and I'll say, if you want to see the others, I can email them to them.
Yeah, but just tell them that we're recommending Gartley and Dorsey's proposal. And then
Yeah.
the comments and questions that they answered when we had our interview for them. So,
Right.
It's obvious that Andrew's done these things once or twice in his life, so, and they've done it for the town too. So there's good track record.
Yeah. And, so we haven't used them that long, but so far, it's been good. I mean, I really like the discussions that he's had with the residents on Vine Street, and then the preliminary talks we've had with people on Hodgson. He has a good sense for that. Yeah. A good demeanor.
Okay.
all right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right.
So
Talk
we'll
to you
see you.
later.
We'll see you tomorrow, Matt.
Yeah, we will.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We'll see you
All right,
guys.
bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.